of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tonight on The Late Show Live, a living nightmare. Sadiq Khan could soon be Prime Minister. I'm Ben Leo and this is The Late Show Live only on GB News, and welcome to the first hour of this 2-hour spectacle where the stories get hotter, the pace gets faster and the brakes haven't been dropped. Do not go anywhere. On the show tonight, I'm
not a fan of your mayor.
Why not?
I think he's done a terrible job, the mayor of London, but a nasty person.
Are you worried?
I think he's a friend of mine.
President Trump would be fuming. Sadiq Khan, get this, is reportedly positioning himself for a tilt at the top job, refusing to rule out swapping City Hall for Downing Street, just when you thought things couldn't get any worse.
You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID.
Papers, please. The government defends its Orwellian digital ID plan despite over 1 million of you at home signing a petition to block it. Plus,
I would love reconciliation with my family.
Prince Harry and King Charles exchanged gifts and even kissed on the cheek at a meeting earlier this month, but insiders warn a full reconciliation is still a long, long way off. Also tonight,
those of us in the free nations, the United States, the United Kingdom, have unfortunately become more like China.
You don't want to miss this guy. Charlie Kirk's close friend and Trump insider Jack Posobiec joins me tonight, warning Britain's traditions are under threat, and he lifts the lid on life inside the Trump administration. Also tonight,
we want prohibition! We want prohibition!
You can't seriously want to ban alcohol? It tastes great, makes women appear more attractive, and makes a person virtually invulnerable to criticism.
Prohibition incoming. A top World Health Organization official outlines his, I argue, balmy plan to outlaw, erase and ban alcohol. Plus, we'll be diving headfirst into the inside stories from tomorrow's newspapers, hours before they hit your shelves tomorrow, with the former Deputy Assistant to President Joe Biden, Daniel Coe, and the Washington editor of The Times and The Sunday Times, Katie Balls, who's also, by the way, the journalist who delivered that rather infamous scoop now on the UN staffers who plotted to turn off escalators and elevators, there it is on your screen if you're watching on telly, during President Trump's visit to the UN this week. More on that later. Also tonight,
all right, everyone, how do we feel about cotton as decoration? Personally, for me, it doesn't feel great.
Oh dear, I liked her as a tennis player as well. Serena Williams gets triggered over a cotton-themed decoration, but has she got a point, or maybe just being an attention seeker? And of course, we're live in Washington, just yards from the White House, bringing you the stories America's talking about and that Britain cares about too. I'm Ben Leo. This is The Late Show Live, and your night's just getting started. Good evening to you. Thank you for your company. I missed you very much, but I'm back. Let's get into tonight's breaking news. And Andy Burnham may have stolen the headlines this week, but he's not the only Labour heavyweight eyeing Sir Keir Starmer's job in Downing Street, because tonight questions are being asked about our very noble, very successful London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, and hasn't he done a great job in London? The Telegraph is reporting that Sadiq is positioning himself for a tilt at Downing Street. Now, Khan has never been shy of ambition or indeed attacking President Donald Trump. You remember when Donald Trump's baby blimp was flown over the Capitol? Well, stunts like those aren't something the president has ever forgotten, as we've seen more than ever in recent days.
I'm not a fan of your mayor.
Why not?
I think he's done a terrible job.
The mayor of London, Khan, is among the worst mayors in the world.
Well, I think he's been a not very good mayor, from what I understand. He's done a poor job. Crime is up, a lot of problems. I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law.
Well, also breaking tonight, Britain could face tariffs of 100% on pharmaceutical products imported into the US under President Trump's latest plan, which was mooted earlier today. So the big question tonight is, are we starting to see fractures in the special relationship? And will there even be a relationship left if Sadiq Khan ever becomes Prime Minister? Dear oh dear, can you imagine? Let me know your thoughts on Khan as PM, gpnews.com/your say. But in the meantime, let's get the take of former Conservative MP Louise Mensch, who joins me live from the Big Apple, New York. Louise, good evening. Thanks for your company. What do you make of this, Louise? You've got, of course, Wes Streeting, the likes of Shabana Mahmood in the run as well. But Sadiq Khan, could it happen, or is it just a load of nonsense?
I hope it's a load of nonsense because it sends a shiver down my spine. I did think it was kind of fascinating to see Sadiq Khan, who I'm sure thinks of himself as a very grown-up politician, calling Donald Trump the avatar of the far right. Well, frankly, if you're hoping to be somebody serious in government, you don't go around insulting the head of state of Britain's biggest ally. You really don't do it. That's just childish. And you might say that's odd coming from me because I spend all my days and nights attacking Donald Trump, but I'm just a commentator. If I was in government, I wouldn't do it. And I think it really shows how unsuitable he is for the job. Under Sadiq Khan, crime in London has gone up 30%. 30%. So, frankly, although we don't have Sharia law courts that have any kind of power in London, and that's nonsense, Donald Trump, in other ways, does have a point. He's been a very bad mayor.
But, Louise, there's reports in recent months that Britain does have 85 Sharia courts in operation. Maybe not in London, but 85 is the figure I've seen. And there was even a job advert on the government website hiring, I was looking at it last night, a Sharia administrator at Manchester Community Centre. So do you completely dismiss the Sharia thing, or are you just talking about London?
I would have completely dismissed it until you said your last bit there, that there was an advert on a government website. Even if it is a local government website, that is appalling and should not happen. And I would expect to see Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood come down on that like a ton of bricks. But actually, it was Nigel Farage, of all people, who came to Sadiq's defence there saying we don't really have these Sharia courts with actual power. You can't stop people organising according to their religion. The important thing to say is that these courts have no rights, they have no jurisdiction, they mean literally nothing in British law, and they never must do. And I think most people in Britain would agree with that, including many Muslims.
OK, Louise, you think that London isn't safe? You mentioned crime's gone up, but Keir Starmer today, in this big speech he gave where he said, you know, we're fighting for the soul of Britain, we'll get onto that later, but Keir Starmer was saying to all the delegates there, I hope you've been enjoying London and having some nice drinks in the park and checking out our nice water fountains and whatever, and, you know, the great monuments and memorials. He was mocking, basically, the accusation from the right, who he calls, that London is some hell-ridden, hellscape. Is London unsafe, or is it just the right-wingers making stuff up?
Well, this is a difficult needle to thread. London is safe. Everybody that lives there knows it. I've got family that live there, 2 sisters that live there. I was there just last week. It is safe generally for the public walking around. There's no question about that. When we say crime has gone up, I don't want to say that the streets are running with blood. They're certainly not. However, knife crime and other types of serious crime has factually gone up 30% under Sadiq Khan. He's brought in these low traffic zones, which are a real pain for everybody that lives in the city. And yet congestion has gone up. Taxes have gone up. There's not one good thing that he can point to. So is London a hellscape? No. Could it be better run? Absolutely. And has Sadiq Khan done a good job? Obviously not. I think all of those things can be true at the same time.
OK, Louise, just finally, before I let you go, you're a Brit, of course, living in America. If the worst happened and Sadiq Khan became Prime Minister of our great nation, what would Donald Trump do? How would he react? How would the administration react? I mean, would he be welcome even in the Oval Office?
Not positively. I think if Sadiq Khan were, in some nightmarish world, to suddenly become our Prime Minister, if Labour MPs were dumb enough to elect him, Sadiq Khan would have to do the apology tour to end all apologies. It might even be worth it, you know, to see how terribly he would have to grovel and beg to Donald Trump to get back into his good books, because I assure you that is what would, in fact, happen. We cannot afford to make enemies of the United States, no matter who the president is. And that goes the same for reform. For example, if they were to attack the Democrats and so forth, and then a Democrat becomes president in 2028. This is, as I said, not the way that grown-up politicians do business. We respect the heads of state of other countries, especially the most powerful ally we have in the whole world.
Yeah, indeed. Louise, thank you for your company tonight. Really appreciate it. Former Conservative MP Louise Mensch, live from New York. Thank you. See you soon. Joining me in the studio now is the Washington editor at The Times and Sunday Times, Katie Balls, and the former Deputy Assistant to President Biden, who are we're going to have fun tonight, Daniel Coe. Welcome, panel. Good evening to you. Before I ask you about Sadiq Khan, President Trump, let me just remind you viewers at home and listeners at home about some of the comments President Trump has made about Sadiq Khan over the years. Take a listen to this.
I'm not a fan of your mayor.
Why not?
I think he's done a terrible job.
The mayor of London, Khan, is among the worst mayors in the world.
Well, I think he's been a not very good mayor, from what I understand. He's done a poor job. Crime is up. A lot of problems. I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law.
Daniel, I guess if you're not a fan of President Trump, I guess maybe not considering you work for Joe Biden, at least you can appreciate his honesty about Sadiq Khan.
Well, look, I was chief of staff to Mayor Marty Walsh of Boston for 4 years. And so I think it is completely fair game to be critical of crime, to be critical of things that make a city harder to live in. I think what is not acceptable is xenophobia and racism that, candidly, people in the MAGA movement here have inflamed a lot recently.
Racist towards Sadiq Khan.
I don't know about that, but I do know that I'm not sure some of the comments that the mayor has made has been helpful, but I also don't think some of the comments that Trump has made has been helpful for the relations of the UK and the United States.
Okay. Casey, what's your take? Could we see Sadiq Khan as Prime Minister? I know Wes Streeting's in the running as well, Shabana Mahmood, but the Telegraph tonight reporting that he would be in the mix. I mean, how would that leave A, Britain, and B, US-UK relations?
Well, there's quite a lot to consider. I think, first off, the question of Donald Trump and Sadiq Khan's relationship, I think to this point, they both play into it. You have a situation whereby ahead of the state visit, Sadiq Khan was making comments about how Donald Trump was, an undesirable person, so to speak. And then, of course, Donald Trump actually was pretty well behaved while in the UK. He waited till he was on the plane to actually start saying Sadiq Khan was terrible.
Why did he do that?
I think he was so charmed by the royal family that he decided he'd get out of the air zone first. But I think on the question of whether Sadiq Khan could become Prime Minister, there is a chance. The point is, under the current rules, and of course we know all political parties can change the rules, you need the backing of the Parliamentary Labour Party, and you also need the membership to back you. And I think that someone like Wes Streeting could potentially struggle with the membership. MP support, perhaps, but also he only just held on to his seat in the last election against a pro-Gaza party. And he's seen as being on the right by many Labour members. Sadiq Khan, does he have a sweet spot there? I think potentially he could be more popular than the members than some of those who are more entangled in this unpopular Labour government.
I also saw as well a couple of days ago Wes Streeting being tipped to run for London Mayor. So maybe that's what's going to happen. Khan as leader, Prime Minister, Wes Streeting as London Mayor. Job swaps, so Daniel, how would President Trump, do you think, being the American here on the panel, receive Sadiq Khan? I asked Louise Mensch there, would he welcome him into the Oval Office? Do you think he'd ever go as far as saying, absolutely not, you cretin, you're banned from the White House?
Look, I think he would be unwise to do that, but I think this is a two-way street. Look, Donald Trump enjoys flattery. He likes flattery. The pageantry that he saw in the UK last week, it's no coincidence. It's no coincidence that he is in favor of that. So, I think it depends on whether there's an olive branch, whether from Trump or from Mayor Khan or Prime Minister, however you want to refer to him, and how that will all play out. So, look, at the end of the day, I think Donald Trump is somebody who likes relationships, and if they are able to mend that, I think it would be unwise for him not to receive the Prime Minister of the UK in the Oval Office.
Did your old boss, Joe Biden, get on with Sadiq Khan?
I don't know how much relationships they have, but I know it was very positive when they did have the conversation.
How is Joe these days? Is he okay?
He's doing well.
Yeah?
He's doing well.
What's he up to?
He's responding well to treatment, and he's with his family, and it's really unfortunate, I think, right now that in our political time there's still so much animus and still so much language about him when he has stage 4 cancer, but he's hanging in there, and I'm happy for him that he's having some time with his family.
I was reminded, Katie, last night, just scrolling through X, the time Biden put on actually I think it's because Kamala Harris has got a book out, and I think she was writing about the moment Joe Biden put on the MAGA hat, or the Trump Vance hat. Just briefly, Daniel, what was that about?
Look, I think he was with a group of people and they asked him to do it and he put it on. You know, I'm not going to hear comments say that was the best thing for the Democratic Party at the time, but it's kind of why the people love President Biden is that he's a people pleaser.
Yeah, I warmed to him after that, I must say. Casey, just lastly, there's just a breaking story today about pharmaceutical products from the UK into the US being whacked with 100% tariffs from the United States. That's if they don't have sites in the US. Is that anything for Britain to be worried about?
Well, yeah, I think there's probably quite a bit for Britain to be worried about if it starts to, affect and impact the economy. And we have seen that. We're talking about the pageantry of the state visit, but there are clearly limits to how much a charm offensive the White House gets you.
Yeah.
I think the UK has done a better job than other countries, particularly European countries. But on steel and potentially on pharmaceutical, there's some difficult decisions to make.
Yeah, and it just goes to show, despite all the pomp and pageantry, the state visit, that trade deal isn't actually finalised, is it? You've got pharmaceuticals, you've got, I think it was kitchen and cabinetware, which isn't included, so lots still to thrash out. Casey, Daniel, thank you very much. Thank you, viewers at home. I've got your says, which I'll read you after the break. Actually, let's do one now very quickly. Darren, you said, I hope there's room in the apartment, Ben, you've got in DC, because if Khan gets into number 10, I'm getting a one-way flight to the US and claiming asylum from a dictator. Well, Darren, I've just today built my son's bunk beds in the spare apartment, so if you want to sleep in a bunk bed, that's up to you, mate, but you're very welcome. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live.
President Trump, what happened with Chuck Schumer?
Are you going to push Zelensky for peace, President Trump?
Was it triple sabotage? Because President Trump demands a UN probe after an escalator halts, the teleprompter glitches and the sound cuts out. Incidents he calls a real disgrace on the world stage. What's he stitched up? What do you think? But first, a story you don't want to miss. He's worked with Nigel Farage and he's close to Team Trump. There he is on your screen with the president the day after he won the election in 2016. Raheem Kassan joins me next to talk about Sir Keir Starmer's battle for the soul of Britain. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Ben Leo. Do you remember this from a bit earlier on today?
There's a battle for the soul of this country now as to what sort of country do we want to be, because that toxic divide, that decline with reform, it's built on a sense of grievance politics, identifying something real for sure, but relying on the problem existing in order for their politics to persist.
Well, that was our dear leader, Sir Keir Starmer, speaking earlier today, claiming the government is in a battle for the soul of the country with Reform UK, as he sets out new measures to tackle illegal migration. Well, that's his excuse anyway for digital ID. Let us know what you think about that. gbnews.com/your say. I'm going to get through some of your messages right now, actually. Elaine, good evening, Elaine. Thank you for staying up with me. You've said the biggest joke is that the fact that by the time the government gets its S together and implement their ID card vision, they will no longer be in power. It's a pipe dream. I know, Elaine, but the problem with that is if you believe in the concept of the uni party, I mean, say Reform UK don't win, say Nigel Farage isn't Prime Minister, and they're not there to completely torpedo digital ID, it could be a Conservative majority. And if you believe in the concept of the uni party, I argue it doesn't matter who's in government, whether it's the Tories or Labour, they're the same thing. Kerry, good evening, Kerry. You've said, I've missed watching you, Ben. I'm going to have to stay up now. Thank you. Hope you're enjoying America. Yes, enjoying America very much. It's amazing to see how they do things here, not least on immigration, how President Trump has tackled the illegal migration situation down at the southern border. Also missing the UK, though. I long for rainy windows and, yeah, snuggling indoors with a coffee. Just the little things. And, of course, my boys. I miss my boys very much. And, Christy, you said, if Sharia courts have no part in the British legal system, then why are they even there? Well, that's it, Christy, isn't it? That's an interesting concept, interesting question. Why are there 85 Sharia courts across the UK? Why was Manchester Community Centre hiring a Sharia administrator for £25,000? It's typical of the left where they say, well, the right complain about something and say, well, hang on a minute, there's some Sharia situation going on here. And the normal response is, it's not happening, it's not happening. Of course it's happening, we all know it's happening. Right, Raheem Kassam will be here very, very shortly. I think he's just getting mic'd up. But joining me in the studio is the Washington editor at The Times and Sunday Times, Katie Balls, and the former Deputy Assistant to President Joe Biden, Daniel Coe. Welcome back, panel. Katie, what was Keir Starmer banging on about today, saying there was a battle for the soul of the country? And who's fighting that battle?
Well, he's trying to cut the Tories out of the picture entirely, saying the Conservative Party is now irrelevant. And he's trying to pitch it as a choice between Reform and Labour, effectively saying that Nigel Farage's party is going to cause problems for what the UK is really about. And I think it's an attempt to effectively unite the left, which is they might not like Labour, but parts of the left won't like Nigel Farage. So if you say, you know, stop Nigel Farage, vote Labour, maybe that's his best bet right now. And I think that's the message at Labour conference. Do you think anyone believes Keir Starmer? I mean, he's talking about patriotism and what it means to be a patriot and calling Reform plastic patriots and saying that he's in a battle for the future of the country. Does anyone believe him? Who's he trying to appeal to? Well, I think it's really easy to criticise the Labour government right now because they've had such a disastrous start to government, if you think how brief they've been in. But of course, their road back to being elected after so long in the wilderness, they did do things like put the Union Jack on cards. Now, you can say that's plastic patriotism. What does it mean? You're just putting on a card. But it was really controversial with the members at the time. So he has done, and then, for example, when they sang God Save the Queen at Labour conference, and they were all so worried a Labour politician was going to heckle it. So fake, so inauthentic. But the fact they've been worried at every sense means that they don't think the whole party is behind them on these issues. Daniel, what do you make of Starmer's comments? He's talking about a battle for the soul of the nation. As an American, if somebody said that in the UK, President Trump, what would that mean to you? I mean, I'll give you my take first. Is it a spiritual battle? Is it a battle just on policy, on who's got the best sort of tax arrangements? What's he talking about exactly?
Well, I think it was a remnant of what President Biden talked about restoring the soul of the United States. Look, I think whether it be the UK, I can only speak about America in the sense that we are more divided than ever. And, with the tragic killing of Charlie Kirk, President Trump had a choice. He could decide to use that as a moment to unite the country and to calm the temperature, or raise the temperature. And what he chose to do was raise the temperature. He said that left radicalists are the only people committing crimes. MAGA amplified that. And so I think there's just a lot of people on the left or right, whether it be in the UK or in the United States, who are just saying this kind of hyperbole isn't helpful, and that we need to get to a point where we actually look at our neighbours with respect again.
OK, I want to play you, the viewers and the listeners, a clip. This is Keir Starmer on digital ID. Of course, Daniel, the big announcement from Labour today is that they want to sign everybody up to a very convenient and helpful digital ID system, which definitely isn't Orwellian at all. This is what Keir Starmer said a bit earlier today on digital ID.
I am announcing this government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Because decent, pragmatic, fair-minded people, they want us to tackle the issues that they see around them.
Oh, thank you, Keir Starmer. What could go wrong with digital ID? Daniel, whilst you're here, this reminds me of the COVID days, Orwellian centralisation of people's information and so on. Whilst you're here, I need to get this out of the way as you are President Biden's former advisor. What was Joe Biden banging on about when he talked about the winter of death for the unvaccinated? He was proven wrong on that, wasn't he? Was that embarrassing for the Biden admin?
Look, I think at the time we were learning more about the disease, trying to figure out what was the right policies to reduce as many lives being impacted as possible.
He was talking nonsense, wasn't he?
Well, look,
he was scaremongering.
Here's what I'll speak about with digital ID. Again, as someone who oversaw 18,000 employees in the city of Boston, worked with a city that was in the metro, about 4.5 million residents, I think you can cross the line with technology, and I think it can be a very dangerous path. I think right now there's a lot of mistrust in government, so I don't think that would go over well here. Let me put it that way.
Katie, what's your take? Digital ID? I mean, it seems to be uniting the left and the right. Nobody seems to want it. There's even Labour MPs tweeting out against it today.
No, there are some in the cabinet who've liked it. It's been one of those ideas that a lot of journalists have been saying Labour are talking about doing this, and often they've said, no, we're not bringing in ID cards and we won't be a papers, please country. But yet, ever since they returned to power, it's kind of just kept resurfacing. And I think the timing's really interesting, which is Keir Starmer's in trouble at the moment. There's lots of headlines he wants to avoid. And then you have Andy Burnham out giving interviews, presenting him as almost as a challenger to Keir Starmer. And then they dropped this announcement, which I think has come about more quickly than some in the Labour Party expected. But as you say, I think there's lots on the right, it makes them very uncomfortable, but figures on the left too. There's a certain wing of the Labour Party. They don't want to be a papers, please country, and they think it's authoritarian.
Daniel, Sally has said on gbnews.com/you'll say, Biden said get the vax and you won't get COVID. He then went on to have COVID 3 times. He lied. Did he lie?
I don't know about that.
Biden, let me tell you, Biden lied as a Brit watching from afar. Biden lied, Fauci lied, Pelosi lied, they all lied.
So saying what?
The CDC lied, saying that you wouldn't get COVID if you got the vax.
I don't think that's what they said. I think that you said you reduce your risk of death.
Right, no, they said for months on end, because that was the whole thing. It was like, don't kill granny, don't pass on the disease. If you get vaccinated, you won't be able to transmit COVID. And do you know what? Pfizer never even tested the transmission.
I think the goal at the end of the day was to reduce as much transmission as possible. And if you look at the data, we did reduce the transmission.
I'm going to get a compilation to show you a bit later on in the show of Fauci, Biden, all of them saying that the vaccine stopped transmission. But anyway, we'll have that out a bit later on. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it. Katie, thank you very much. Raheem Kassam is here. He was late in traffic. He was caught in traffic, but he's here. He's getting mic'd up. He's here next. A top boss also. Get this. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. A top boss at the World Health Organization has called for a total ban on alcohol. But first, a story you don't want to miss.
These are the two things I got from the United Nations: a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
I'll be speaking to the journalist who got the scoop about the alleged, the alleged corruption at the UN, where President Trump, the escalator stopped, sabotage is the word, the escalator stopped, his teleprompter stopped, the microphone went out. It was Katie Balls, who's here tonight, who first reported in the Times that UN staffers were joking about doing that exact thing before the trip. I'll be grilling Katie on that very shortly. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What happened with Chuck Schumer?
Are you going to push
Why did you
Zelensky
cancel
for
the
peace,
meeting?
President Trump?
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live. In just a moment, we'll get the inside scoop on that very moment at the UN, which left President Trump and the White House fuming. But first, as I mentioned a bit earlier today, Sir Keir Starmer, our dear leader, has claimed the government is in a battle for the soul of the country with Reform UK and Nigel Farage as he sets out new measures to tackle illegal migration. Take a listen.
There's a battle for the soul of this country now as to what sort of country do we want to be, because that toxic divide, that decline with reform, it's built on a sense of grievance politics, identifying something real for sure, but relying on the problem existing in order for their politics to persist.
Well, joining me in Washington is the former chief advisor to Nigel Farage and also the editor-in-chief of the National Pulse, Raheem Kassam. Raheem, welcome along. Thank you for your company tonight. What's Keir Starmer on about when he talks about the battle for the soul of the country? Who's in this battle, who's taking part, and how does it end up?
Well, I never thought I'd say this, but I agree with Keir Starmer. There is a battle for the soul of the nation right now, and that battle is very firmly between the Labour Party, which really, you know, we always joked in, you know, back in the day when I worked for Nigel that you could barely put a cigarette paper between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party. So it's not just the Labour Party, it's the Tories too, and then Reform on the other side. And that's why you're seeing, you know, I don't know what it is now, 102, 103 polls that show Reform in the lead, getting a stonking majority if the election were to happen tomorrow. There is absolutely a battle for the soul. And that battle for the soul of the nation is manifesting itself in all sorts of different ways. Obviously, there are the big ticket items, free speech, mass migration, but it also comes down to the nitty gritty of of day-to-day lives of people. How long are they waiting on NHS waiting lists? You know, are the potholes in their street getting fixed? These all go to what the soul of the nation is. If your neighbourhood is dirty, if your local roundabout is a dumping tip, you know, all of these things, they resonate throughout your neighbourhood, throughout your community. And that's what soulfulness really comes down to. It's family, community and country. And that's what Reform are so good at talking about now. I just went to their conference a couple of weeks ago. It was extraordinary. Those were the themes that came up time and time again.
You were, of course, we said in the introduction, former chief advisor to Nigel Farage. I remember back in the, was it the UKIP days you joined them?
Yeah.
Could you ever have imagined then, Raheem, that they'd be polling today, well, leading every poll for the last 6 or 7 months? I think the latest one today showed them winning 350 odd seats or something like that. Could you ever have imagined, when Nigel was sort of rattling around back then in UKIP, that he'd be where he is today, with the era of President Trump, leading every poll going and tipped to be the next Prime Minister?
Yeah, look, after a few shots of absinthe, we would think about that sort of thing. But no, it's a great question, because no, there was lots of talk about, you know, could we be in coalition government? Could we have the balance of power somehow? You know, of course, we got 13% of the vote in 2015, but then only 1 seat in the Parliament, which was, you know, wildly incoherent as far as electoral and democratic politics is concerned. But no, and seeing these people get together at Reform Conference a couple of weeks ago, it was extraordinary to me how Nigel's apparatus has grown up. You know, I will say for myself, we weren't particularly organised or grown up in the way we went about things. These people he's got around him now are true professionals.
Is the setup he's got now, could they walk into Downing Street, or is there some more fine-tuning to go?
Oh, well, look, there's definitely fine-tuning. I think he would say that, all the people around him would say that. They still need a couple of years to recruit the right people, to get up to speed with the apparatus of government. I don't think anybody would lie to the British public right now and say, you know, day one, we can get everything done. You know, if it were to happen tomorrow. The reality is this party is going to grow at the local elections next year. It's going to grow in the year after that, and it will then be able to walk into Downing Street and avoid a situation that, say, President Trump had in his first term, where they couldn't staff up the government properly.
Well, I spoke to Liz Truss a few weeks ago. I interviewed her, and she was saying, did you say sorry about that? She's okay. She's a lovely lady. She was saying, will Nigel Farage, if he gets in, will he be Trump 1.0, where he's kind of doesn't really know how government works, he's bounced around by the likes of John Bolton and Fauci and all the deep state globalists, or will he be Trump 2.0, where he's got his team around him, he knows what to do this time, and I'd argue he's on a bit of a vengeance mission as well?
Yeah, no, I would argue that the British civil service is actually harder to deal with than the US, you know, quote-unquote deep state. They're more entrenched, they've got more power, it's more organised, they're certainly more nefarious. And so I think Nigel really and his team really have their work cut out for them. That's why this year, the next year and the year after that, it will really take ordinary people getting involved with that party, because Nigel can't do all the work himself, Zia can't do all the work himself, Richard Tice can't do all the work himself. They're going to need hundreds upon hundreds of people, and they will need thousands to staff up government. That's where ordinary people get involved.
One more very quick question. Of course, you're a Brit. With Nigel back in the day, you've now moved to DC. There's that infamous picture of you, or famous rather, with President Trump in the golden elevator. Was it a day after he was elected in 16?
Day after.
The day after. So you've got a good intuition for what's, you know, the vibe on the street here in DC. What does this Trump administration really think of Keir Starmer? Because I know President Trump is very diplomatic in person. And would the Trump administration much prefer Nigel Farage to be Prime Minister?
I think that's a no-brainer. You know, they see eye to eye on all manner of things.
What do they think of Starmer?
I won't try and speak for President Trump, because people at home will be laughing when I say this. He is actually an incredible diplomat in person. He's kind. When we walked in there to his house, that was, right? To his penthouse in New York, the first thing he did was, can I get you anything? And he didn't mean, can I get a servant to run off and get you anything? He meant, can I get you anything? He does the same thing at Mar-a-Lago. Like, he'll go off and get you a Diet Coke himself, you know, and bring it back on a little gold drink. He loves playing the host, and he loves playing the diplomat. But he knows that diplomacy only gets you so far. His people, I will channel a little bit here. My sources, let's say, in the White House and on Capitol Hill, they think Keir Starmer is, you know, probably the worst thing that they could have possibly inherited as a partner on intelligence, as a partner on free speech and democracy issues and all of that. But you know what? It's reality. They have to deal with him. In fairness to Keir Starmer, he did get elected, and they'll have to work with it.
In his defence, for reasons of balance, he'd say that deportations are up in the UK. They've got the one-in, one-out deal. Flights are off the ground. Inflation's been falling as well, and of course he's got the trade deal with the US and amongst other trade deals. So is he all that bad, Keir Starmer?
Well, if we're talking about balance, he inherited one of the worst scenarios from a Conservative Party that had not been Conservative in about 20 years. So there's plenty of blame to be laid at the, quote-unquote political right as well in the United Kingdom. And I think also we have to accept that the voters have some culpability here as well. Re-electing Tories and re-electing Labour time and time again and expecting some change is a nonsense.
Yeah. Also, President Trump said that Starmer was a great negotiator. Of course, we've got the tariff slashed from, was it 20% to 10 or 15 to 10? Is he a good negotiator, do you think, Keir Starmer? President Trump says so.
Was it Starmer or was it Mandelson?
Yeah, interesting. That Mandelson story's just gone under the rug, hasn't it? It's a bizarre press conference in, where were they last time round? In the UK, when Trump was just saying, I don't know who Mandelson is.
Well, that's how he deals with uncomfortable situations.
Also, one more point before I let you go. Reform have no MPs at the moment. Well, 5 MPs, one in, one out. Sort of could have had maybe 7 at one point. Now they've got 5, 4. Does that pose a concern for Reform, and does that give kind of Labour the advantage of having the idea of stability? I mean, they've got a massive stonking majority.
Yeah, incumbency is massive in politics, and that really falls down to the average voter. Do they want real change, or do they think that somewhere along the lines the old guard have their best interests at heart and they can cajole them around? I would argue that the average British voter right now says, you know what, we've tried it, it's not working, it's time for reform.
OK, Raheem, thank you very much. Appreciate your company. Hopefully see you again soon. And I'll be at your restaurant as well. Love it. Top Steak, Butterworth in DC. If any viewers are here or listeners are here, Butterworth in DC. Thoroughly recommend it. Thank you, Raheem. Right, let's take a look at some of the newspaper front pages hitting the shelves tomorrow. The Times leads with EU deals can reduce need for tax rises, hints Rachel Reeves. Oh, there we go. Another cozying back up to the EU, eh? Just when you thought Brexit, the biggest democratic vote in the history of the nation, was done and dusted. No, another cozying back up to the EU. The Guardian, Labour are in the fight for the soul of the nation. We've just been discussing this. That's according to Sir Keir Starmer. The Prime Minister says it must confront and defeat Reform UK. The Daily Telegraph tomorrow. King is key to Trump U-turn on Ukraine. The King played a critical role in persuading Donald Trump that Ukraine could win the war against Russia. That's interesting. I'd also argue probably President Trump was just a bit miffed with Putin in the end. J.D. Vance yesterday or the day before saying that patience is running out. And the New York Post, this side of the pond, leads with Sinclair, the ABC branch off, ending its Jimmy Kimmel Live blackout and returning the show to the air tonight. And the Washington Post reports Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth has abruptly summoned hundreds of top generals and admirals for a so-called warrior ethos speech, sparking concern over possible firings amid recent unexplained Pentagon dismisses. And I think Secretary of War Pete Hegseth was also at the football earlier today, pulling some pretty impressive dance moves. Let me know your thoughts on all those front pages by visiting gbnews.com/your say. Let's get the thoughts of the man of the hour, Patrick Christie's, who's going to run through the papers now. He's back in the hot seat after a few weeks off. Me too, Patrick. What's your pick of the stories tomorrow?
To a lot of different topics, actually. It's on the front of the Daily Telegraph. King key to Trump U-turn on Ukraine. Now, I've been doing a bit of reading into this story, but I'm actually very concerned about this for multiple different reasons. So, firstly, the President Zelensky's chief of staff, Andrei Yermak, has leaked this private information to the Daily Telegraph, saying that King Charles played a critical role in persuading President Trump that Ukraine could win the war, right? So not just that we should give them a bit more stuff, not that they should just carry on, that we shouldn't get it, but that they could win the war. He said, I'd like to mention that it was the great visit of President Trump to the United Kingdom, and I know the position of His Majesty, the position of the Prime Minister, it was a very important meeting. Huge concerns about this. We've done a huge amount for Ukraine, and for, I think, one of Zelensky's chief of staff to go and leak private, personal, confidential information about a conversation between our monarch and the President of the United States that was done behind closed doors to the Daily Telegraph, I think is incredibly poor form. I think there's another question mark to be had here over whether or not the King should be getting involved in the Ukraine situation. Some people will say, well, it's part of his job. Other people might be concerned about it. And other people might be thinking, should the King of our country not be doing more to focus on domestic British issues than stuff that's going on abroad? But the key line for me there is this win the war thing. There's been a shift, hasn't there, Ben, from, oh, I'll get a deal done, to actually being maybe, some would argue, maybe potentially a bit rude to Zelensky, to this idea now that actually we could win a war with Russia and that we should maybe shoot their fighter jets down as well, which would be a huge escalation. And if some of that has come from our king, I think that's a little bit concerning.
What's your take, Patrick, and indeed everyone back in the UK? President Trump's sort of pivot on this, from one minute saying, let's get Putin to Alaska, let's sort a deal out. I know Putin, you know, he's kind of an acquaintance, I can sort something out. To basically overnight saying, I'm miffed off with this guy, he's wasted my time. JD Vance saying that the administration's getting impatient. Do you think that makes President Trump look weak in your eyes?
No, I think fundamentally President Putin only has himself to blame for whatever happens next, because he had every opportunity in the world to get out of this situation with plenty of land in Ukraine, plenty of new resources in Ukraine, and for actually Zelensky to probably be forced out of office at some point. He's chosen not to take that, and now whatever comes next is one thing. It's going to be a serious test of the British public appetite, this, for A, boots on the ground, and a hot war, a potential hot war with Russia in Europe, and all of the consequences that could mean. And there will be massive knock-on consequences to this. You know, things like hacks. We can expect massive amounts of hacks from Russia. We can expect all of this stuff taking place. But again, I just feel deeply, deeply uncomfortable that if our king, you know, whatever our king talks about with world leaders behind the scenes, fair enough, all right, that's one angle on it. But for that information to be leaked by the Ukrainians to the national newspaper is a terrible, terrible look, I think. And you mentioned in your last guest, Raheem Kassam, there, I get on with very well, to mention that for the US administration to feel as though they can't trust the Brits with sensitive information. I think most of that is to do with Gaza and what's going on in the Middle East. But if you've got this as well, I just don't think it's a good look for anyone concerned, and I question what the appetite is for the British public for us to engage in a hot war. And I will say this, I say this as a monarchist, I say this as an unrepentant monarchist. I do think that some people look at King Charles at the moment and they just question him. He's got a tough act to follow. We've seen a lot of him being the pro-diversity stuff. We've seen a lot of him being, you know, in some cases openly very pro-Islam, I would argue, and not being pro-Christianity enough. If he has gone into bat for essentially, you know, a full-blown support for a war with Russia, or be able to turf them out of Ukraine entirely, I just find that a little bit. I think he's out of touch.
Yeah. Indeed, well said, Patrick. Before I let you go, very quickly, because we're squeezed for time, I feel bad because I never asked you earlier. How's the little one? How's George?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Has it changed you?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's certainly a lot about me that needs to change. I'm not sure whether or not he's managed to do that yet. But no, it's going really well, thank you, mate. And, yeah, it's given me a whole new take on life. So I know you've got a couple, so I'll be asking you for tips.
Yeah, nice one. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it, Patrick. Good night. See you tomorrow.
See you.
Right, still ahead on the Late Show Live, Serena Williams. I used to love Serena Williams. I'm a massive tennis fan. I admire her. Anyway, she sparked a row about the use of cotton in homeware decorations. She's been triggered about the link to slavery and so on. Is she an attention seeker, or maybe has she got a point? But first, a story you don't want to miss.
We want prohibition! We want prohibition!
You can't seriously want to ban alcohol. It tastes great, makes women appear more attractive, and makes a person virtually invulnerable to criticism.
Well, 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 the World Health Organization could be about to stop you at home from enjoying your favourite alcoholic drinks. They want to ban it worldwide. As Nigel Farage would say, boring. This is the Late Show Live, only on GB News.
GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Ben Leo. Now, in New York, just up the coast here from DC, a World Health Organization chief is demanding tougher global crackdowns on alcohol, with it potentially facing a total ban all across the world in the near future, as they blame booze for over 2.6 million deaths a year. Well, joining me now is the author of I'm Never Drinking Alcohol Again. I've said that many times before, Dominic McGregor. Dominic, thanks for your company this evening. Did you see this today? I mean, it seems a bit balmy, actually, banning alcohol across the world. First of all, would you back such a ban?
Personally, I wouldn't back a ban, but we have to understand who's saying it. This is coming from the World Health Organization, so they're coming at it from a purely medical and health perspective. So what they're actually saying is alcohol, which is a drug and a toxin, shouldn't be put into your body, which is correct. So from my perspective, when I look at it, I take it with a pinch of salt, because they're speaking purely from their role as a health organisation and not looking into other factors in terms of social and cultural norms that we have in our society.
Yeah, I think it's time actually to shut down the WHO for a myriad of reasons. But tell me what your book is about, Dominic. I'm Never Drinking Alcohol Again. I've said it many times before after a boozy night, and I'm sure lots of our viewers and listeners have. What's it about?
Yeah, it's about actually waking up one morning and saying I'm never drinking again and actually doing it. And taking that experience of all the times you wake up and say, maybe I should stop drinking, and actually what happens when you do stop drinking, you see a very different perspective of life, and you find joy in a lot of other things. And for someone who, like myself, was struggling with alcohol and it was kind of taking over my life quite a bit, I found it very freeing to be able to realize I don't need it in my life to have fun.
So when you say, just very quickly in 20 seconds, when you say stop drinking, do you mean stop drinking completely teetotal or just limiting it for special occasions?
Yeah, completely.
What do you say to people watching this now saying, oh, you're boring, Dominic?
I say I have more fun ever. I've done Coachella, Glastonbury, amazing festivals, all sober, and I have the best time ever.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you that. I worked in Ibiza for a season when I was 18, and the best night of my life, still to this day, was when I went to a gig completely sober. Still today, it was the best night, so I'll give you that one. Dominic, thank you very much. Appreciate your company. Dominic McGregor, the author of I'm Never Drinking Alcohol Again. I'm not a massive fan of alcohol. I have one or two maybe if, I don't know, if I finish work or with a Sunday roast or something, but never been a massive fan. Right, stick with us on The Late Show Live. Coming up in the next hour, including...
Who is the current Prime Minister of the United Kingdom?
Is it still Boris Johnson?
Well, it could soon be Sir Sadiq Khan. Your views on that? Welcome. We've had plenty already. First, though, let's take a look at your weather update with Honor Krizik.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Turning wet from the west through the course of the day, then a day of sunshine and showers from Sunday, often windy over the weekend, particularly where we catch any heavy downpours. So it's going to be a very wet start across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. A couple of rain warnings issued here, a chance of some localised flooding. This rain will persist through much of the day and eventually will start to push into western areas of England and Wales. But to the east of this, it should be a mostly pleasant day, mainly dry, a few isolated showers in parts, and feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 19 degrees Celsius. The unsettled weather is here to stay through much of the afternoon and through the course of the evening, particularly across Scotland. Some heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain continuing as this system steadily pushes its way eastwards, quite blustery at times, particularly around western coasts. Any rain will eventually clear Northern Ireland, so starting to turn a little clearer here, but push into northwest England through the course of the evening. Once again, this rain is likely to linger through much of the evening, similar across Wales and southwest England, but across the far south and southeast, it should be mostly dry to finish off the day, but through the course of the night we'll eventually see this rain pushing its way eastwards. Once again, some heavier outbreaks, particularly across Scotland. Skies will begin to clear across parts of Wales, southwest England, and eventually as we head towards dawn across central parts of England too. So under those clear skies, a chance of some mist and fog, possibly some isolated frost patches, but for most it's a cloudier picture, so temperatures won't drop quite as low as they have done earlier in the week. Now, spells of rain will eventually clear their way across the southeast, persisting for a time across northern parts of Scotland. Still a chance of some heavier downpours here. Behind it, we'll see a mix of clouds, some showers starting to push in from the west, but for most it is going to be the better day of the weekend. Still feeling warm and pleasant in the sunshine, highs reaching 19 degrees Celsius across the southeast. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tonight on The Late Show Live, Halloween is just around the corner and this could be an absolute nightmare. Sir Sadiq Khan tipped to be the next Prime Minister. Good evening, hope you're well. Thank you for your company. Breaking on The Late Show Live tonight.
I'm not a fan of your mayor. Why not? I think he's done a terrible job. The mayor of London, but a nasty person. I think he's a friend of mine.
Well, President Trump's going to be fuming, I reckon, because Sir Sadiq Khan is reportedly positioning himself for a tilt at the top job, refusing to rule out swapping City Hall for Downing Street. He's going after Keir Starmer, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse.
I would love reconciliation with my family.
Prince Harry and King Charles exchanged gifts and even kissed on the cheek at the meeting between them earlier this month, but insiders are warning a full reconciliation is still a long way off. Also tonight,
those of us in the free nations, the United States, the United Kingdom, have unfortunately become more like China.
This guy is very, very talented, very, very bright, just like his close friend Charlie Kirk. And Trump insider Jack Posobiec joins me tonight, warning that Britain's traditions are under threat and lifting the lid on life inside the Trump administration. He has some stark warnings for the country. Also tonight, we'll be diving headfirst into the inside stories from tomorrow's newspapers, hot off the press, hours before they even hit the shelves, with the former Deputy Assistant to President Joe Biden, Daniel Coe, and the Washington editor of The Times and The Sunday Times, Katie Balls, who is also, and we're about to get stuck into this, the journalist who delivered that now infamous scoop on the United Nations staffers who plotted to turn off the escalators and the elevators during President Trump's trip to the UN earlier this week. More on that in just a tick. Also tonight,
There you are, Mr. Netanyahu!
they've gone after President Trump, they went after Charlie Kirk, and now South Park's latest target is Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Nobody's safe. And the episode is already sparking massive controversy. Stick with us to find out why. And of course, we're live in Washington, just yards from the White House, bringing you the top stories America's talking about that matter to Britain too. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live, and welcome to the second hour where the stories get hotter, the pace gets faster, and the brakes have been dropped. Hallelujah! Don't go anywhere. Right, let's get back into the main story of the night, and it's one that causes me and probably you, the viewers and listeners, grave concern back home, and maybe even Sir Keir Starmer, because Sir Sadiq Khan, according to the Daily Telegraph tomorrow, has eyes on Starmer's job. He wants to be Prime Minister. It comes as the London Mayor's Manchester counterpart said Labour MPs want him to replace the PM. That's Andy Burnham, of course. And also, just this evening, Donald Trump is reportedly planning to impose 100% tariffs on Britain, including pharmaceutical companies. So, I mean, if we had the tariffs, if we had Sir Sadiq Khan as Prime Minister, could UK-US relations Get any further in the gutter? Well, joining me now to discuss this is the Washington editor at The Times and Sunday Times, Casey Balls, and the former Deputy Assistant to President Joe Biden, Daniel Coe. Welcome back, panel. Daniel, let's start with you again. We've touched on this in the previous hour. Do you see any weight in the Sadiq Khan running for the top job? Could you see Sir Keir Starmer being toppled over the next 4 years?
I'm not sure about that. You know, you guys have this system over there that we Americans don't quite understand. Look,
likewise.
This is a crazy political time, I think, both over in the UK and in the United States, so I guess anything's possible.
Yeah, okay. And Casey, what's your take? What are you hearing on the grapevine in DC?
I think it's quite apparent, before you even speak to anyone, that were Sadiq Khan to become Prime Minister, that would be a huge issue for UK-US relations. You can also speak to people and they will say this to you, but we just look at, and we've seen it tonight, the various things Donald Trump has said about Sadiq Khan and the things that Sadiq Khan has said about Donald Trump. In a way, both men like to lean into it. They almost enjoy the pantomime of insulting one another. And Sadiq Khan, I think, has a badge of honour about saying, oh, some in Labour almost that, you know, they've sold out so much that they'll now go for diplomacy. I won't do that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if he was Prime Minister, he might have to behave a bit differently because you think about the security relationship, you think about all the reasons you have a special relationship which transcends who is Prime Minister or President. But at the same time, this depends on timings. If Keir Starmer managed to hold on, you could have a situation where Trump is out of the White House before you had a new Prime Minister anyway. Sheila
has said on your say, Ben, are you trying to give me nightmares talking about Sadiq Khan as Prime Minister? Casey, how realistic is it? Are we just sort of hyping things up here off the back of the Telegraph story, or is there a real chance this could happen?
It's not impossible. I don't think it's our most likely scenario because also Sadiq Khan currently doesn't have a seat. He has a similar problem to Andy Burnham, obviously another mayor, but the mayor of Greater Manchester, who's also positioning himself, which is they have to find a way to get into the House of Commons before they can even run. So you have to time that with Keir Starmer, who may or may not be pushed out anyway.
Yeah.
So it's tricky.
OK, well, to get me over the thoughts of Sadiq Khan as Prime Minister, I think I need a bit of a drink, which is a nice segue to our next story, because the World Health Organization has, one person from the WHO today, a top scientific bod, has suggested we need to ban alcohol all around the world. He says it's a killer which kills 2-3 million people a year. Anyway, I took to the streets of Washington, DC today to ask the locals what they thought of such a proposition. Should we ban alcohol all over the world? Just asking people whether they support a ban, a worldwide ban on alcohol, because someone at the WHO suggested it today.
Christ, no, I just had a beer.
What did you have?
I had an IPA.
Would you support that?
No, not really.
Why not? Not a good idea?
Because we enjoy it from time to time, you know, like in special occasions.
Because we're tipsy.
You're tipsy now? Yes.
We're a bit...
Hang on, what's the time?
Yes.
It's not even 4 o'clock.
Yeah, well, we are on vacation here.
I don't drink to excess, so
good man.
Hangovers are not an issue.
Diplomatic answer. Somebody at the World Health Organization has today suggested banning alcohol.
Oh.
Would you support that?
No.
Solve a lot of problems? Hangovers? Mistakes?
Yes. It's possible.
Whose birthday?
It's her birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Should we go for a drink?
Another one? No, I
can't.
can't.
You're done. Finished.
Thank you.
All right,
we can ban alcohol now.
Yes.
You've had your lot. We'll ban it.
It's social. It's conversation. You know, it's not necessarily negative.
I always go back to that Simpsons quote: "Alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems."
To alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
It's not a marg, is it?
It is a sangria.
Oh, if it was a marg, I would have joined you. There we go, action on the streets of DC. I feel a bit bad, Daniel, because in that clip it looked like I was asking that lady out for a drink and not the husband who said it's her birthday. And I've watched it back and I'm thinking, oh no, I was only joking, I was asking you both out. What do you reckon? Is this going to have any traction, banning alcohol all across the world?
Look, we just talked about how divided the world is in different countries. The one way to unite the United States would be to try to introduce an alcohol ban or unite people pretty quick against it. So no, I don't think
that's... Are you a big drinker? Did you drink under Biden? I'm
not a big drinker. I did drink some nights under Biden more than others, but I think that I would be very unhappy to see a drink ban happen.
How does it work in the White House? I watch, what's it called, Designated Survivor on Netflix. Have you seen that? Have you seen that, Casey?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's scenes in there where the staffers go into a side room and they're pouring scotch and whiskey. Does that happen in the White House?
Depends on who you know.
Yeah. OK, good stuff. Casey, ban on alcohol, yes or no?
No.
No.
I would struggle with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a bad idea for many reasons, which is also like, you can point out that there are health risks associated with drinking lots of alcohol. I think an outright ban, are we going back to prohibition? We can see through history that you can try banning these things. People often find a way around it. You move to the black market. There's, where there's a will, there's a way, particularly if you know what you're missing. And I also do think, actually, if you look at the trends, I can speak more to the UK than the US on this, there is a rise in young people not drinking, right? If you think about, you go to bars now and they have a whole menu of all the no alcohol cocktails.
Oh no, that's a bit lame.
It's not, look, it's not where I am, but maybe I'm too old, but all I mean is it's never been easier to go out and not drink. You have the option, so let people decide what they want to do.
I know. Look, I'm not, I've said before, I'm not a massive boozer, but I quite like a margarita or a mojito or something. I think, who was it, Frank Sinatra, who said about, what was the quote? He said, for non-drinkers, the best they'll feel all day is when they wake up, or something like that. Anyway, I'm not promoting, obviously, insane drinking, but as I said, I like a marg, so next time what to get me. Let's move on. Katie, I need to talk to you about something. You were the author, you were the top journalist, the scoop getter, who wrote in the Times in the days ahead of Trump's UN visit in New York that UN staffers were plotting to stop the escalators when Donald Trump went on it. And what happened days later? The escalator stopped when President Trump stepped on it. First questions first, were you the person who stopped the escalator?
No, but you're not the first person who's asked me that.
It's an obvious question.
I haven't got that desperate on my journalism yet, just to be very clear. No, it's very strange. I basically was writing almost a preview of Donald Trump's appearance at the United Nations General Assembly. So I'd been calling around and speaking to people on the ground about what to expect from it. And we know that Donald Trump has a very strained relationship with the United Nations anyway. He's called for reform of it. He was laughed at, I think, in 2017, about 2 years in, when he gave a speech and talked about all the achievements of his administration, and the crowd just started laughing. At that point, he was quite disconcerted, saying, I didn't expect that. And obviously, since he's returned, he's done all these funding cuts, so talked about withdrawing from various parts of it. And what I was picking up was effectively that the UN staff felt similar levels of animosity towards Donald Trump. And one of the things I heard from a few people was they often talk about turning off the escalators or the lifts to make a point because of funding cuts. They have to do it sometimes. And therefore, the joke was they might do that to Trump so he has to walk up the stairs.
And then it happened.
Then it happens, and we're waiting for the speech, and I didn't see the clip until after the speech, but he says in his speech, in about 2 minutes in, the escalator stopped, and I was like, that is a strange coincidence.
Did you feel guilty, as if you kind of manifested it through your writing?
No, I mean, if anything, my writing was the heads up, but clearly I wasn't well enough read to stop it.
Yeah, and of course, Caroline Leavitt, the White House press sec, she retweeted your article. Not sure if we've got a picture of it. Have you heard from the White House? Have they asked you for, not that you'd ever reveal them, but have they asked you for your sources?
No, I think one of the great things about America is they believe in the First Amendment, and I also think journalists and their sources, so I haven't had anything yet. But as you say, Caroline Leavitt has done that tweet, and also Donald Trump referenced the Times of London in a Truth Social post on it, and that report. But of course, I don't know who did or didn't do this, and I think we have the UN investigation obviously coming up potentially, where they're looking at all the various cameras. You also have Laura Loomer now, who I think said she exclusively obtained the details of the escalator model. So I think this has reached like a level of journalism that goes beyond my abilities at this point.
Yeah, interesting. And has your boss sort of said, well done for getting the Times, not that it needs it, but getting the Times mention of the World Fair?
No, I think people are quite happy that the Times brand is now being talked about in the White House.
Yeah, nice. Well done. Some brownie points. Do you think President Trump is going to pursue this investigation into Escalator Gate? And do you think, Daniel, it was a stitch-up? Because the escalator stopped, then the teleprompter dropped out, and then the mic cut out as well.
Look, the president likes to pursue these kind of things, so I'm sure he will. Look, if someone intentionally did that, they should be fired. I think there's a lot more important things happening right now in the world that he should focus on, but I'm not the president.
Okay, Daniel, I'm sorry to do this to you on your first night of my show, but in the last hour, you said President Biden and the likes of Fauci never said the COVID vaccine, would stop transmission, right? You still stick with that?
I think he was trying to reduce. Let's see what they say. Let's see the tape.
Okay, let's have a reminder. Play the VT.
You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
Vaccines prevent getting infected, prevent getting sick, prevent your hospitalization.
So there we go. There's Fauci, there's Biden saying you won't get COVID if you get the vaccine. So do you stand corrected or?
Well, look, I don't want to see the rest of the clip, but I think that did significantly reduce transmission. I'm not sure it was universal, but I think if you look at the data, it did significantly reduce transmission.
Okay, interesting. Diplomatic answer. I'll let you off because it's your first time and I don't want to be too mean to you. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live, Serena Williams is apparently unsettled by a cotton plant. So is it a plant in the corridor of a hotel in New York with some cotton ball, sort of like a makeup remover cotton. Anyway, she was triggered by it, apparently, because of links to slavery, I guess. But first, a story you don't want to miss.
I remember him saying that he had, so much reverence for the British history.
That was Charlie Kirk's close friend and Trump insider Jack Posobiec. He's a leading conservative campaigner here in the United States. Millions and millions of followers on social media. I spoke to him a bit earlier today. He's warning about Britain's traditions being completely under threat from the likes of, well, mass migration, of course, free speech as well. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. There we go, you lucky so-and-sos. No break this hour. Charlie Kirk's close friend and Trump insider Jack Posobiec joined me a little earlier today, warning about Britain's traditions and how they are under threat from the likes of mass migration, free speech and socialist communist governments. He's lifted the lid as well on life inside the Trump administration and indeed about his dear friend Charlie Kirk. And Jack spoke quite touchingly at Charlie's memorial on Sunday in Phoenix in Arizona. I was there. I've said before, and the energy in the room was electric. I'd argue actually it was holy as well. I started our conversation together by asking Jack about Charlie's trip to the UK when he was very generous by coming on GB News and my show. This is what Jack said about Charlie's visit to the UK.
I remember him saying that he had so much reverence for the British history, and particularly when you read about the Enlightenment, when you read about so many various speakers and writers and thinkers from that time frame, and you have so much of really the sort of American experience and this commitment to civil rights and human rights, which really does flow from England. And I think Charlie had a lot of respect, so much respect. And I think that came across in your interview. People may have thought he was being cynical in Oxford at Cambridge, but he really wasn't. That's something that Charlie actually writes about quite a bit. And also he believed that is so much in those ideals, particularly obviously the one freedom of speech, that, well, look, he went and gave his life for it. He actually sacrificed his life for this ideal. He said that he thinks that the UK is in a poor state, to put it bluntly. He thinks that the UK, incredible traditions, incredible people, and yet something has gone wrong with the governance over there.
Okay, my panel are back with me, Katie and Daniel. Katie, we get accused, and also the likes of Nigel Farage when he went to Congress the other week to talk about free speech in Britain, we get accused of talking the country down. I spoke to Liz Truss a few weeks ago and she was saying, we're not doing that, but she says we just need a reality check that we are in a little bit of a sticky situation that we need to improve. When you hear the likes of Jack talking about Charlie's trip to the UK, Charlie being an American, very concerned about what he saw, how does that make you feel? Do the Americans, are they concerned about us?
They are. I mean, I interviewed Charlie Kirk in July this summer and we spoke about his trip to the UK also, similar to you.
What did he say?
He was talking about lots of his concerns. I asked him what he liked about the UK.
What did he like?
The weather, he said. And I said, is that a joke? Because not many people like British weather. And what? He said, no, they got very lucky and it was sunny. He didn't like the food and he didn't like the levels of migration and so forth, the things you would expect. But he also said that he preferred Oxford to Cambridge when it came to debating the different students. And he was talking a lot about pride. And his point was, he felt that in the UK we'd kind of lost that sense of pride, and he said in the US we'll try and move mountains, in the UK you've all given up, and he said Europe the only word is sad. He then halfway through said, I don't mean to offend you personally, I just think your country's a bit pathtic. Yeah. So that's okay. But I think there is a real sense of that. And also he was so close to the administration. He went, for example, with Donald Trump Jr. on a trip to Greenland and so forth. But I think the only thing I would say is sometimes when you speak to people in America about what they think about Britain, it's not that they're wrong in some of these cases when it comes to freedom of speech and others. It's just that they have such a specific view in it. I'm not sure how much it correlates to everyone's day-to-day experience of the country.
Yeah, maybe they don't have the entire full context of what it's like to live in Britain. Daniel, as an American, what's your perception on Britain at the moment? Is this claim that we need to find our mojo again and put ourselves up by the bootstraps, is that just sort of looking through right-wing rose-tinted glasses?
I think a little bit. Look, I think the reality is, you talk about free speech, there's a lot of people in America really worried about the future of free speech in this country. You have the chair of the Federal Communications Commission who just took Jimmy Kimmel off the air and made a threat that they're going to do it, quote, the easy way or the hard way. So I think there's a lot of concern about this and where we go from here in terms of censorship. In America, obviously, the First Amendment is incredibly valued, and I think there's a lot of concerns on that.
Okay, I spoke with Jack also, and by the way, before I continue, the full interview with Jack, we spoke for 35 minutes. Like Charlie, his friend, he's a very intelligent, very bright young man, and the full interview will be on YouTube, GB News YouTube and socials after tonight. I asked Jack, well, Jack told me he's got a cousin in London. He's of Polish descent, Jack, and he said that his Polish cousin works as a black cab driver in London. Take a look at this.
When we talk about this, he says there's a lot of opportunity, but he says a lot of the same forces. He sees a lot of it where the change has been there. I think he's been there about a decade now, and he's seen a huge change in the last 10 years in terms of the makeup of the people who are in London. And he says it doesn't feel like London anymore. It doesn't feel like the city that he moved to.
Do you think London's changed, Casey? How often do you go back?
A fair bit. I mean, I've only been here a couple of months, so my memories are still quite fresh of London. Do I think London's changed? I don't. I think what Donald Trump said in that speech about Sadiq Khan and Sharia law and where it was going, that's not the London that I see. But do I think London is, a crime-free, utopian ideal? No. And it does have lots of problems, right? And I think some of those are about management, some of them about why we spend money on certain projects as opposed to the things that most voters care about.
Do you think the UK has changed?
Over what period of time?
I don't know. I should never ask a lady her age, but I guess since you were a child, because for me, I tweeted earlier, I'm 36. So I remember the UK being vividly different to what it is now today.
Yeah, I mean, I think the UK has changed, and you can look at the the demographics, and you see that. And I also think you look at what's happened in recent governments, and it's clear that there is a lot of unhappiness about the direction the UK is going in some ways, because you had a Tory government that made lots of promises, didn't deliver them, a Labour government that's also struggling, and I think unhappiness was some of the change, and I think some of the changes have been good, some are ones that give voters concerns. That unhappiness is why we're now talking about how the two-party system may finally be about to break, I think.
Yeah. Daniel, so the UK has changed, no doubt. I mean, it's not a left or right consensus, it's changed because of migration. The cities have changed. There's some streets where they don't speak English at all. I went to one in Leicester the other week. Is that a problem as such?
Well, I don't think so. Speaking for the United States, this is an administration, this is a president who has implied that foreign-born people aren't American, regardless of whether they are citizens. And we are seeing examples of that over and over again. Matt Walsh tweeted out even today, he talked about Dearborn, Michigan, a place that has a very large Muslim Lebanese population.
Yeah.
Listed a bunch of the names of the mayor, the mayor's chief of staff, the police chief. Did not criticize any corruption, but just put their names there and said, is this what the future of America is going to be? I believe that in America that's diverse, where people are coming from different countries and becoming citizens, is how we were built as a country. So I believe in that. There are people on the right, and candidly I think it's coming from the top, that is trying to redefine what it means to be American. That really disturbs me.
Okay, two questions there. I mean, first of all, is it not a concern though? Let's start with this one. So if I'm not saying I agree with President Trump or the argument from the right, although I do have sympathy with it. If I go to Japan and I settle there for 5 years and I get a Japanese passport, does that make me Japanese?
If you are a Japanese citizen, I think it depends on well, look, I think the reality is if the government is welcoming people to become citizens, that should be something that is welcome.
What do you think? Would that make me then Japanese?
I think if you are a Japanese citizen, yes, you're a Japanese citizen.
So you don't believe in ethnicity? There's no such thing as white English as an ethnicity?
I think I'll speak for the United States. I think the pride of the United States is our diversity. It's what makes us unique compared to virtually any other country in the world, and if we abandon those principles, we abandon who we are as Americans.
Okay, but just to clarify, so you do or don't believe in ethnicity? Because if we do a census in the UK, it will say, are you white British, are you whatever, white Irish, I don't know what the options are. But I can see from your argument there that as long as you've got a piece of paper which says, yes, you're an American citizen, your ethnicity doesn't matter.
I'm not sure exactly what that means. If you're talking about for a census demographic, sure, you can look at census demographics. But for me, if you're an American citizen, you are an American.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
also, if you say on the ethnicity, someone's white British, that's not saying that everyone else can't be British, is it? When you think of those forms.
No, but you've got so white. It will say white English on the census.
Yeah.
So you've got the argument from the right is you've got nationality, which is British in your passport, and then you've got ethnicity, which in this case would be white English. Same as the Japanese argument. You know, you're Japanese with a passport, fine, but if I get a passport and I'm a Japanese citizen and my son, who's, you know, a white English kid, is that child then Japanese?
Well, look, here's the example.
Because by that you're just obliterating any sort of concepts of ethnicity and history of a nation's peoples.
Again, I'll speak to the United States because it's what I know the best. Matt Walsh tweeted out something else. He said that the New York City is 40% foreign-born. He said by definition that means that it's not an American city anymore. I completely object to that kind of nomenclature. It doesn't matter where you were born. The United States prides itself in that diversity. It prides itself in people immigrating, like my Korean and Lebanese family, like many other people who have come to this country. So I just take exception to this notion that we're defining any country, but I'll speak to America, by any single race or ethnicity.
Okay, interesting debate. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say. There was one more clip I wanted to share from my chat with Jack Posobiec. It was about Sadiq Khan and a very similar situation they've got in New York City with a, I mean, I'd call him a communist. I think, is he a commie, Daniel?
No.
No, okay. He's a socialist in New York. Anyway, this is what Jack said about Sadiq Khan.
Is a guy who's taking these issues that I'm talking about, you know, something like the housing crisis or something like the financial crisis or a lot of these issues that are going on, and he's used that to ride to the forefront of politics in New York City. He's currently leading in the polls, but not leading by a lot because people are starting to learn more about him. And what we're seeing is full-on avowed socialism from him. And also, by the way, very positive statements that he's made about communism. They will sink New York City into absolute and abject ruin if this man and his policies are allowed to take over.
So, Daniel, just explain the situation in New York City. This guy is causing a lot of controversy. Who's running? Tell us about him.
He's a Democratic Socialist candidate. I think in the very beginning, objectively, no one thought he was going to win.
What's his name?
His name's Zohran Mamdani. Andrew Cuomo was the presumptive winner. He was very well resourced. He continues to be well resourced. He also has 10 credible sexual harassment claims against him and had to resign being governor. And so, look, his focus was very relentless on the fact that New York City is way too expensive to live. That is an objective fact. It's stunning. They did a poll, and 13% of people said that it was somewhat affordable. I don't know who the heck those people were, because anybody who lives in New York will tell you it's way too expensive. He was relentlessly focused on saying groceries were too expensive, rent was too expensive, and transportation is too expensive. That's what he was. He was not solely focused, but the vast majority of his campaign was on that, and it resonated with people.
Do you think he's going to win then?
Yes.
And what would that mean? What would a win in New York mean for the sort of progressive movement? I mean, again, I say it in jest, I call them commies, but for the progressive movement in the United States?
Well, look, I think it remains to be seen. I think what you have seen is that he has been out there meeting with different groups. He has been talking about his views. He has been talking about how he wants to be a mayor for everyone. I think that's the right language. I think it's to be determined when he gets into office, but I hope that he continues to focus on affordability, because that's something that I think is universally a concern.
Also, DC, very, very expensive, let me tell you.
Yep.
I need my expenses claims signed off if anyone's listening. Right, let's move on to the next question with Jack Posobiec. Digital ID. Just why, for viewers at home, listeners at home, if you're still kind of on the fence about digital ID and why it's such a concern to so many people from the left and the right, Jack gave a great explanation to it. And Jack, by the way, he worked in Shanghai under the CCP for 2 or 3 years at the US Chamber of Commerce. So he knows all about Chinese social credit systems, social credit scoring, and so on. And this was his explanation about why we need to be concerned about digital ID.
I spent 2 years living in China. I lived in Shanghai, and so this is sort of 2007, 2008 timeframe. So this was prior to the social credit score really being built. But that's what they have there in China. They have a centralized database of every single individual, and so they promote it in the sense of convenience. Oh, you can facial ID for your bank account, so you don't even need to have a card, or there's no tap card. You just take a look at the vending machine, and if you're at Lawson's or something, and you can just have it detracted from your account if you want to buy, a bottle of water or something. But the issue then also becomes that, oh, wait a minute, we saw this during COVID. Wait a minute, you have come in contact with someone who had COVID. There is someone in your building who has COVID. Now suddenly you can't get on the metro. Now suddenly you can't go into work. Now suddenly your car won't start. This gives a system of total control. When the UK gave Hong Kong back to China, there was this sort of sense that if we open up more to China, that they will become more like us. But unfortunately, I think that the system has gone in reverse, and we, those of us in the free nations, the United States, the United Kingdom, have unfortunately become more like China, because our leaders, our political leaders and business leaders would go to China, and it becomes the aphrodisiac of power. They find out what it's like to wield total power, and they want it for themselves. And they will tell you, we want the China model here, and we're willing to get it, whether it's COVID, whether it's going green and the specter of climate change, although that's not as popular anymore. So great, if the crisis is migration, we'll use that to say this is the reason that we need the China model. That has been the goal for some time now.
Balls, somebody on your site, Arthur, has said, here we go, digital ID would be used for restricting the amount of alcohol you can buy. First of all, do you believe that kind of argument? And also, are you worried about the fact that Rachel Reeves has been travelling to China, cozying up to the CCP? We've also got this mega embassy being built quite controversially in London. By the way, Daniel, you won't know this, but the Chinese won't reveal what's on the basement and the lower second floor.
That's reassuring.
Yeah, exactly. Is there any concern about China from your end?
Well, I think on the first point about would that be leading to alcohol, the question... It's a slippery slope argument, really, isn't it? Which is just, as soon as they have this level of information, the response of government is often to be more involved rather than less. Even people who talk about slimmed down governments almost get into government and suddenly realise they like having power. And COVID, I think, really almost gave a taste for that, selling the sense that the government was involved in everything, and it took so long to detangle from that. We're not even to this day completely. So I think I don't think it's necessarily happening, but the risk is the powers are there and you don't know who's going to be in next, etc., or in 10 years' time. On China, I think that Labour's engagement with China has been something which is concerning since they returned to government, because they're not quite clear about what they're doing. The mega Chinese embassy is something that we know the US administration are concerned about. I think that getting close to China means that you're potentially more strained with some allies like America. Not sure that necessarily means something on ID cards, but certainly I think there's a lack of transparency about what exactly the UK government is trying to get from China, because they are going to have to give some things in return.
Daniel, did the Biden administration ever consider digital IDs? Did it ever come up as far as you're aware?
Not that I'm aware. Look, I think that this is a really concerning time about trusting government in general. You already saw with Elon Musk and Doge that he had access to a lot of people's personal data, whether it be social security information, et cetera, which I don't think he should have had access to. So I think this is a really bad idea, no matter whether it's UK or the United States.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Right, and last question from Jack that I posed to Jack. We talked about Sir Keir Starmer, his thoughts on the Labour administration, and also a certain Reform UK who have been leading every poll for the past 6 or 7 months. This is what Jack Posobiec had to say about Labour.
I was actually at the White House the day that that he had his first meeting with President Trump, and I was there, and he seems to have taken on a different tack in terms of his relationship with President Trump, where he's tried to be as friendly as possible and to be there to butter him up. But at the same time, President Trump has been friends for a long time, a decade plus, with Nigel Farage, and I've looked at the polls right now, and I see what Reform is doing, and it seems like it's riding quite high in the standings right now. Now, I know that there isn't an election that's to be called anytime soon, but you look at the deep unpopularity of Keir Starmer, and there's no question that I think the time is absolutely ripe right now, it seems to me, for the people of the UK to rise up and throw off both the establishment right and the far left and try to find a new path.
So there we go. That was my interview with Jack Posobiec, leading Conservative commentator, 4 or 5 million followers on social media. As I said, he's a very bright, talented young man. He's worked in China. He was a dear friend of Charlie Kirk's. The full interview will be on GB News socials, including YouTube, where you can catch the full chat. And I recommend you do, because I had lots of fun doing it. Before we go and move on, Daniel, of course, there's no breaks this hour. Can I read you some questions from our viewers?
Please.
Back home, as Biden's...
Great.
Yeah, Sally has said, why did did Biden let over 13 million illegals into America?
Well, that's actually an inflated number because
Trump thinks it's 25 million, by the way.
Well, first of all, it's an inflated number. Secondly, I would say that there was a bipartisan legislation, Senator Langford and Democrats that was stalled and actually killed by Donald Trump. He didn't want it to happen. It wasn't politically expedient for them to get it done at the time.
Okay. What do you know about the auto pen? Was that you signing the executive orders?
I would say that every president since Jefferson has used some form of the auto pen, including President Trump. So I think this is the biggest distraction of all time.
Did you see the White House yesterday put out the clip of, was it in the West Wing,
Yes.
where the Walk of Fame?
I thought it was ridiculous.
You didn't find that funny?
Not for a guy with stage 4 cancer, no.
Okay, well, simply because he's got cancer. I mean, I don't think they had that in mind when they did it.
I think there is a history of respect for presidents in the United States that I don't think that this president has any action for doing, and that's disappointing.
Okay, Casey, what's your take on the auto pen? Because the Trump admin would argue that it wasn't Joe Biden running the country.
Yeah, and we know it's one of those topics that Donald Trump likes to talk about. You will be in various press conferences and watch them. And I think coming from the UK perspective, there'll be something like the Ukraine war going on. And then the question will be, tell us about the auto pen. I think that there are perhaps some questions about, I think there are questions definitely about Joe Biden's, how able he was to do his job in the final few years of that presidency, given some of the allegations that have come out since in these various books. Was he of sound enough mind? Was it a small cabal of advisors? They called it the Politburo in one of these books. They were really making decisions and he didn't have much say. And I think that's probably why the auto pen scandal, to the point of, yes, different presidents use different ways, I think it's probably got more potency because it feeds into the sense of, was he always on it? And that means it carries more.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, definitely.
First of all, President Biden was objectively old. He was 80, when he left the White House, he was like 82 or something like that. He was not senile. That was just some fabrication that Donald Trump liked to perpetuate. That's the first.
So why was he ousted then as a runner for the presidency?
Because I think, look, the debate didn't go well, and it became this firing squad, and that's what ended up happening. But look, the bottom line is like this whole notion that the book revealed some kind of smoking gun just isn't true. First of all, tell me a single person whose best hours aren't 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Most people. Secondly, name a single prominent politician who remembers all of their staffers' names. Zero. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're
really all of their staffers. How big are staffing teams?
I've worked for many an elected official. And many of them, despite knowing me for a long time, often forgot my name. It's the way it goes.
So how big are their teams in numbers, roughly? I mean, I can't imagine there's...
President Biden?
What, scores?
There are 500 people who work in the White House. So you think that President Biden's going to remember every single one of them?
No, but maybe he's in a circle, no?
I think the notion that the President of the United States didn't remember someone's name or that his best hours were from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. I think if you really take a step back, that's not that crazy to think that those things are plausible and doesn't mean that he's senile.
Just watching from the UK, Daniel, the media here for a long time said there's absolutely nothing wrong with Joe Biden. Forget being senile, but even just old age taking effects. They were saying, no, absolutely not. MSNBC, CNN, they were banging on about it for ages. And now all the top presenters from those networks are writing books about the big revelations from the White House saying that Biden had lost his marbles. So there was this perpetuation for a very long time about whether Joe Biden was competent enough to run the country. And the American people, I'd argue, watching from afar, were completely gaslit by the media and even the administration saying he was fine, when in actual fact, even if it is, as you've said, just old age, there was, he wasn't on top form.
I think Jon Stewart said that best. I'm not sure why those people who were supposed to be journalists sat on information like that for years before publishing a book other than to make money.
Yeah. Okay, right, thank you very much. Still ahead on The Late Show Live.
I would love reconciliation with my family.
Oh, there he is. The Sun leads with still no way back. What really happened in the King and Prince Harry's 53-minute meeting earlier this week? I'd argue Prince Harry has been very, very lucky getting a meeting with his father. I know they're father and son, but the way Harry had behaved, and maybe the panel can chime into this in a bit later on, treating your family like that in such treachery, I'm not sure, as much as I love my boys, I'm not sure I could reconcile so easily. We'll discuss that story with a top lawyer who tried to get Harry deported from the US back to the UK from the Heritage Foundation. First though, let's get a weather update with Honor Krizik.
warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Turning wet from the west through the course of the day, then a day of sunshine and showers from Sunday, often windy over the weekend, particularly where we catch any heavy downpours. So it's going to be a very wet start across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. A couple of rain warnings issued here, a chance of some localised flooding. This rain will persist through much of the day and eventually will start to push into western areas of England and Wales. But to the east of this, it should be a mostly pleasant day, mainly dry, a few isolated showers in parts, and feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 19 degrees Celsius. The unsettled weather is here to stay through much of the afternoon and through the course of the evening, particularly across Scotland. Some heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain continuing as this system steadily pushes its way eastwards. Quite blustery at times, particularly around western coasts. Any rain will eventually clear Northern Ireland, so starting to turn a little clearer here, but push into northwest England through the course of the evening. Once again, this rain is likely to linger through much of the evening, similar across Wales and southwest England, but across the far south and southeast, it should be mostly dry to finish off the day, but through the course of the night we'll eventually see this rain pushing its way eastwards. Once again, some heavier outbreaks, particularly across Scotland. Skies will begin to clear across parts of Wales, southwest England, and eventually as we head towards dawn across central parts of England too. So under those clear skies, a chance of some mist and fog, possibly some isolated frost patches, but for most it's a cloudier picture, so temperatures won't drop quite as low as they have done earlier in the week. Now, spells of rain will eventually clear their way across the southeast, persisting for a time across northern parts of Scotland. Still a chance of some heavier downpours here. Behind it, we'll see a mix of clouds, some showers starting to push in from the west, but for most it is going to be the better day of the weekend. Still feeling warm and pleasant in the sunshine, highs reaching 19 degrees Celsius across the southeast. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
There you are, Mr. Netanyahu! Just who do you think you are?
Welcome back to the Late Show Live. I'm Ben Leo. That, of course, was South Park, one of my favourite cartoons. I'll tell you in just a bit why we're mentioning South Park. Before that, let's take a look at some of the newspaper front pages, hot off the press, starting with the Daily Mail tomorrow. The headline reads, "Here in Calais, a migration catastrophe is unfolding. In 25 years reporting from the French ports, Sue Reed has never seen it more crowded with desperate migrants." And, of course, that follows Patrick Christie's great adventure to Calais the other month. The Eye reads, "Brit card. Digital ID facing major backlash from Labour, leaving PM's plan in peril." Well, you'd hope so. You know, this is one of these topics where it unites both the left and the right, because anybody with a brain, whether you're red, blue, green, reform, whatever, anybody with a brain, I would hope, could see what is down this dark path. Just look to China. The Sun tomorrow leads with "Still no way back. What really happened in King and Harry's 53-minute meeting." Well, let's talk about the Sun a bit more now. Joining me in the studio is the attorney for the Heritage Foundation here in Washington, D.C., Sam Dewey. Sam, good evening. Thank you for your company. You were the guys trying to get Harry booted out of the US back to the UK, right? Just remind us what happened with that.
So it's really an ongoing effort by the Heritage Foundation and then the offensive arm of the offensive litigation arm, which is now an independent group, the Oversight Project, and we're continuing it because we're trying to find out what happened with his visa records.
Just whether he lied about drug use on the visa, because in Spare he said, "Oh, I used to get coked up and take magic mushrooms," and then on your US visa, as I know because I just applied for one and managed to get one, you're asked about drug use. So you're still fighting that battle?
We are still fighting that battle on multiple fronts, and we're hopeful that we will get transparency on that and find out what happened, because from everything we've seen, every piece of data we've analyzed, he either lied or he got some sort of special treatment. We have our suspicions as to what happened, but you really shouldn't be able to do what he did. And I think it just goes to the incredible arrogance he displays in everything, where he would write the darn book knowing that would get him into trouble and not care.
Yeah,
and
well,
just think.
Yeah, either he lied in the book or he lied on his visa application, right? It's one or the other, so the truth would be great. I do take bit of a position, though, you trying to offload him back to the UK, because we thought we got rid of him, Sam.
I mean, It doesn't have to go back to the UK. We just want everybody to follow the visa laws, and there was a real concern under Biden on not only the 13 to 25 million immigrants coming in, depending on who you look at, but how the visa laws were just not being enforced neutrally.
Okay, let's talk about that in just a sec, including the auto pen as well, which you've got lots of commentary on. But Prince Harry had a 53-minute meeting with his father. Lucky boy, I say, in light of his behaviour. What do you know about this?
I mean, I've read most of the accounts. I've talked to some people about it. It sounds like it was a touch-base meeting, and there's going to be no movement. The decision has been made that Harry himself had excused himself, to put it politely.
From the meeting?
Or from the royal family.
Oh, right, yeah.
And just any participation in it. So it was a short meeting, and I expect, and what I've kind of heard is Harry went in thinking, well, there's a pathway, I have some room to maneuver, and was quickly disabused of that notion.
So what's his goal then? Aside from wanting to reconcile with his father from a human perspective, you know, you want to patch up with your old man, has he got any deeper ambitions? Does he, I mean, is he skint? Is he trying to get more commercial access by getting back into the royal family? What's your take?
So I think it's a combination of things. I think it's mainly is commercial, and it's kind of feeling isolated. He's not in the limelight anymore. He has to generate his own publicity. He goes from event to event, and he's not getting the same type of positive coverage, not getting invited to the same sets. He's in the United States in an isolated, kind of extreme left-wing group of friends. He doesn't have the universal appeal that he had as a prince who was trying to support wounded troops.
Do you think he's a lefty at heart?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question.
I mean, he's a military man, so that, I mean, by definition, you'd probably lean a bit more right being the military, no?
I would think, but, you know, I think he's clearly to the left, and he's really put himself on the left. I mean, he was attacking President Trump just last week over some decisions regarding funding for medications in Africa, and regardless of the merits of it. He is clearly on a side and on an ideological mission.
Okay, and do you know what he thinks of the Heritage Foundation? Because surely he's aware that you're trying to get him booted out.
I don't think he likes us.
What have you heard? What's he called you?
I haven't heard him call me anything, but I would expect he does not like Heritage or the Oversight Project at all.
Have you heard from Archwell or Harry's office about what you're doing?
Not at all. I mean, we identified some interesting grants that went to Archwell that were coming out of funds that were questioned by Doge and that were coming out of USAID. They were getting a lot of grants to Archwell and a lot of money, 8 figures, US was moving around.
Oh, really? And they, of course, it's all legitimate. They deny any
shenanigans. And it may well have been. It just goes to show you that they were playing that type of game of tying into a specific kind of liberal network as opposed to the broader appeal he's lost.
All right, Sam. Well, you're not going to be a fan with our viewers because, as I said, you're still trying to get him deported back to the UK. But parking Harry to one side for the time being, tell us about your concerns about the auto pen, Joe Biden. Just explain for our British viewers what the auto pen is, because we say it a lot here in the US, but maybe it doesn't translate or hit home in the UK.
Sure. So the auto pen is the mechanical device by which the president's signature would be affixed to a document, and it would take the place of the original signature, the signed manual, to authenticate it. And the issue here is there's just no documentation to authenticate numerous acts that Biden took that are non-delegable.
But Daniel Coe, who worked under Biden, we had him on the panel, he'll be back in a second, he says that the auto pen's been used in some form or another for decades with different presidents.
No doubt. The distinction is, one, the type of documents. President Trump, for example, doesn't auto pen pardons. He hand signs them. Joe Biden had a ton of pardons auto pen. And then the second point is, there is no documentation to support the pardons. The White House counsel's office did a complete review and couldn't find any even initial on a decision memo from the president. There is literally no documentation reflecting a power of the president that only the president can take.
Okay. Well, I mean, viewers might ask, well, okay, fine, but so what? What's going to change now? What are you trying to do?
I mean, I think there are two things. There's the question of the president's capacity writ large, and then our view is that you have to question the validity of some of the underlying acts. Were they ever authorized?
Yeah.
Because you literally have nothing on paper. And bear in mind, the staff that moves the paper, their whole job is to reduce the risks. Their whole job is to never have this question asked. They're lawyers who are careful about the paper. And this is the opposite of what they would be doing. They had to have been told to do this, there had to have been a reason to do it. And it appears to be everybody went along with Biden sits with the Politburo.
Yeah.
No one knows what comes out.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Who signed those pardons? Who signed the pardon for Hunter? Who signed the pardon for Jamie Raskin? And, Anthony Fauci. Fauci's the big one, goodness me. How long have we got? We've only got 10 minutes. Don't get me started on Fauci. Talk to me about the death penalty. What's President Trump doing with the death penalty?
So there was a review by the White House counsel's office which said there was absolutely no authentication on any of these pardons. There's no paperwork. You can't really document it. And they recommended that DOJ do a further investigation.
Department of Justice.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense. But DOJ put out an odd statement earlier this week effectively saying, we're moving the people that were on death row to Supermax. Fine, no one would argue with that. But then unnamed DOJ sources told Fox News you can't undo a commutation.
Right.
Which was odd, because of course you can. If it was never valid, it's in the first place, it never existed. So what's the problem? So implicitly, it read like the Department of Justice was saying the pardons are still valid, and that caused a lot of questions, because I had thought President Trump had said they aren't valid. I had thought the White House counsel's office had said, DOJ, you should investigate this. And then we see this statement that, as a matter of logic, presumes they are valid.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on at DOJ. I hope it gets cleared up.
Do you support the death penalty?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't think and it's just a question of what's going on. Why isn't the president's will being translated into what DOJ is doing here, and why didn't they look further?
Okay. It's an interesting debate, that the death penalty. I mean, even Christians, sort of Bible-loving Christians, will say, yeah, I support the death penalty, which on the surface goes against thou shalt not murder. But then the debate after that is, well, is the death penalty murder? Surely it's justification, it's consequence for somebody doing wrong. Sam, thank you very much. Sam Dewey, the attorney for the Heritage Foundation. Good luck with your mission in getting Prince Harry out of your shores and back home in the UK. I'm not sure we're a fan of that, but good luck to you. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live. Tony Blair, oh my goodness me, do you remember him? May lead a US-backed transitional authority in Gaza before power returns to Palestinians. Could you imagine Tony Blair as president of Gaza? But first, a story you don't want to miss.
Who is the current Prime Minister of the United Kingdom?
Is it still Boris Johnson?
Reality TV show The Only Way is Essex. I must admit, being in DC, I don't miss it one bit. Anyway, the cast are left clueless about who the Prime Minister is. It's the generation, this generation particularly, in the UK. Are they doomed? This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. Right, here's a story for you. Former Prime Minister Tony Blair, your favourite person back home, he's reportedly in talks to lead a transitional authority in Gaza. The proposal is said to be backed by the White House, and it would see Tony himself, Tony Blair, head a UN and Gulf-supported body before handing power over to the Palestinians. He would basically panel, Katie and Daniel, he would basically be interim president of Gaza. Katie knows how Brits feel about Tony Blair, I'm sure, but A, what's your take on him, Daniel? And B, is this a good idea? Is this progress towards sorting the situation in Palestine?
Look, I don't know much about this story yet, but the reality is this. You have too many innocent lives being lost in Gaza. You have Israel that still has hostages in Gaza. It's a tragedy all around. What happened on 10/7 was, and there needs to be some kind of path to peace. So if there are things that are actually adding to peace, I'm all for it.
Do you think Keir Starmer should have recognised Palestine as a state? Because President Trump was on the lectern with him doing the press conference. As soon as Trump came back home to the US, Starmer said, oh yeah, we're going to recognise Palestine as a state. And the problem with that is that Hamas has said, of course, that would be one of the fruits of October the 7th.
Look, I think the short term with Hamas there, I think it's concerning. I think the long term, though, we need a two-state solution.
Okay. Katie, your thoughts on Blair? I mean, I'd argue lots of our viewers would shudder at the thought of him being back on the scene in any capacity.
Yes, but also I think this is a pretty undesirable job in many ways. If you think about the fact that It's going to be incredibly complicated. The reason you're at a point where they're potentially looking at Tony Blair being involved in some way to share forces, obviously you cannot have Hamas. Then they worry about the Palestinian state and others. The Arab countries in the area don't particularly want to govern it. Israel even doesn't want to. So I don't think this is quite, Tony Blair wants to be back in number 10 and all the grandeur. This would be a very hard task to do, and therefore I think people might feel about it a little bit differently.
Well, you could argue as well that Keir Starmer's been listening to Tony Blair on digital ID. This was Tony Blair's fantasy some 20 years ago, and he's still walking around, skulking around Tony Blair. And what happens now? Keir Starmer's in power, and oh look, digital ID's in play. Let me show you a very quick clip from South Park, my favourite TV show, who has gone after Charlie Kirk, President Trump, everybody you can name of. Now it's Benjamin Netanyahu. Take a look at this.
There you are, Mr. Netanyahu! Just who do you think you are? Killing thousands and flattening neighborhoods, then wrapping yourself in Judaism like it's some shield from criticism. You're making life for Jews miserable and life for American Jews impossible. Oh, don't you roll your eyes at me, mister. You know what you're doing, and you're doing it on purpose.
Daniel, some people saying that it's anti-Semitic by criticising Netanyahu or Israel. Very quickly, you've got like 10 seconds.
I haven't seen that clip, so I can't comment on that. I do want to say one thing about the auto pen, though. Yeah. There is documentation of the Chief of Staff signing off on those pardons.
OK, good to clarify. Thank you, panel. Daniel Coe, former Deputy Assistant to President Joe Biden. Appreciate your company. And Katie Balls, the Washington editor for The Times and The Sunday Times. And thank you, viewers at home, for staying up so late. I've missed you this past 2 weeks, and I'm going to see you again tomorrow night, midnight in the UK and 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Sweet dreams. Thanks for your company, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Turning wet from the west through the course of the day, then a day of sunshine and showers from Sunday, often windy over the weekend, particularly where we catch any heavy downpours. So it's going to be a very wet start across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. A couple of rain warnings issued here, a chance of some localised flooding. This rain will persist through much of the day and eventually will start to push into western areas of England and Wales. But to the east of this, it should be a mostly pleasant day, mainly dry, a few isolated showers in parts, and feeling warm in the sunshine, highs reaching around 19 degrees Celsius. The unsettled weather is here to stay through much of the afternoon and through the course of the evening, particularly across Scotland. Some heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain continuing as this system steadily pushes its way eastwards, quite blustery at times, particularly around western coasts. Any rain will eventually clear Northern Ireland, so starting to turn a little clearer here, but push into northwest England through the course of the evening. Once again, this rain is likely to linger through much of the evening, similar across Wales and southwest England, but across the far south and southeast, it should be mostly dry to finish off the day, but through the course of the night we'll eventually see this rain pushing its way eastwards. Once again, some heavier outbreaks, particularly across Scotland. Skies will begin to clear across parts of Wales, southwest England, and eventually as we head towards dawn across central parts of England too. So under those clear skies, a chance of some mist and fog, possibly some isolated frost patches, but for most it's a cloudier picture, so temperatures won't drop quite as low as they have done earlier in the week. Now, spells of rain will eventually clear their way across the southeast, persisting for a time across northern parts of Scotland. Still a chance of some heavier downpours here. Behind it, we'll see a mix of clouds, some showers starting to push in from the west, but for most it is going to be the better day of the weekend. Still feeling warm and pleasant in the sunshine, highs reaching 19 degrees Celsius across the southeast. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World with me, Nana Akwe. Now tonight I'll be joined by Emma Wolf, and tonight's Left in the Corner is Andy Twelves. In Real World, Real People, we'll be speaking to Festus Akinbosoye, and in Last Orders we'll meet comedian Stan Boardman. But first, let's go to the news.
Good evening. The top stories. The Prime Minister says digital ID will be mandatory in order to work in the UK as part of plans to tackle illegal migration. Sir Keir Starmer said the government would introduce a new ID system by 2029, saying it would make it tougher to work in the UK illegally and offer countless benefits to citizens. However, opposition parties argued the proposals would not stop people crossing the Channel in small boats. The Tories have branded the move a desperate gimmick to stop the Channel crossings. A petition urging the government to abandon their plans has now surpassed 1 million signatures. Dozens of diplomats walked out of the UN's Assembly Hall as Israel's Prime Minister took to the podium. As the session's chairman called for order, there were boos and cheers while delegates stormed out. Benjamin Netanyahu used his speech to speak directly to the hostages held in Gaza and to the terror group Hamas. He also said recognition of a Palestinian state is sheer madness. It's insane and we won't do it, adding that recognition by several other countries is disgraceful. Donald Trump has since spoken about a potential deal on Gaza before he boarded Marine One at the White House. The US president says he believes the deal will get the hostages back and added it's going to be a deal that will end the war. The man who was wrongly convicted of killing Jill Dando has today been charged with rape and indecent assault. Barry George has been charged with sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl almost 40 years ago. The CPS said the charges relate to non-recent allegations that took place in 1987. Mr. George was convicted of the 1999 murder of Jill Dando, but the conviction was overturned on appeal. He was later unanimously acquitted by a jury after a retrial. Nigel Farage is on course to be the next Prime Minister, according to a new YouGov poll. According to the polling prediction, if there was an election held tomorrow, there would be a hung parliament, with Reform UK winning 311 of the 650 seats, just 15 short of the winning line of 326. In practice, it would be impossible for anyone other than the party leader, Mr Farage, to secure the largest number of MP backers and ultimately become Prime Minister. The UK's population jumped by more than 755,000 in the year to June 2024, the second highest annual rise on record. New figures from the Office for National Statistics show 1.23 million migrants arrived in the country during that period, while under 500,000 left. The data also reveals deaths now significantly outnumber births, with migration driving population growth under Labour's government. And former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Lord Ming Campbell, has died at the age of 84. Walter Menzies Campbell, often known as Ming, had a parliamentary career spanning 5 decades and served as leader of the party between 2006 and 2007. His grandson praised him in a statement, saying, "Like so many of us, I greatly benefited from Ming's advice and guidance over the years," also praising him as a warm and caring friend and colleague. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World with me, Nana Aquare. Now, very recently we've heard that migrants are given £2,000 on a debit card so that they will leave this country. I mean, have you ever heard of anything so ridiculous? No, perhaps I shouldn't be saying that. Let's ask Emma Wolfe for her opinion. Emma.
Nana, just when you think it couldn't get any worse, I just want to know, how did Britain get so weak? How did we get so spineless? Firstly, if we want to deport people, that's our right. We're a sovereign nation, that is our right. Secondly, if we want to deport and remove foreign criminals from our country, that is absolutely our right. How on earth did we get to a situation, the idea that we are paying people, giving them a little card with £2,000 loaded onto it to be returned to Romania or wherever, is absolutely scandalous. This is staying in Britain, living in our country should be a privilege. It's not a right. And if people are breaking the law, they absolutely should be out.
Welcome to Clown World. Andy Twelves, what do you think?
Well, I think this is part of the facilitated return scheme, which has been going on since 2006. This isn't a new thing. It's asking foreign prisoners to leave and stop costing us money before the end of their prison term. They're not living amongst our communities. It's just for people who are in prison. You know, it costs, I don't know how much it costs
Andy, that's even worse.
To facilitate, you know, a foreign prisoner in our prisons, but it's definitely more than £2,000. I think it's cost effective. And also, more importantly, this has been going on for the better part of 20 years.
All right,
this isn't like a new news story.
Just because it's been going on for 20 years doesn't mean it's right. You can do something for 20 years totally wrong.
Yeah, but it's not a new story. This is an old thing.
No, and it is pretty shameful. I agree with Andy, probably on the only thing we'll agree on. It's pretty shameful that this has been going on for nearly 20 years, since 2006. It just shows you how politics is so broken that this country can't just say, get out. You know, get out. We are not paying for these people. How long have we been paying for people, foreign criminals, to be housed, accommodated, fed, you know, kept going in our prisons?
Well, wouldn't that be the point, that you pay less if you give them £2,000?
No, just get rid of them. No, just deport them back to their own countries.
That is the point, because the issue is, for a lot of these countries that they're going back to, we don't have return agreements. That would mean that British prisoners in prison there would have to come back here. And because we don't have those return agreements, is that if they sent the British prisoners back, we wouldn't be able to try them in this country. So you could have rapists, criminals, whatever, wandering around our streets. I'd rather just pay £2,000 to get them out than have random people wandering around our streets and not imprison them. I think, how much does it cost if you're a rapist, you're in prison for what, 10, 15 years? How much would that cost the British taxpayer? £2,000 is nothing
As I
compared to that.
understand it, they're being returned with this extra little cash at the end of their prison sentences. So
no, it's to take them in the middle.
We've already paid thousands and thousands of pounds.
It's in the middle of the
They're
sentence.
probably escorted home. They're probably set up at home. They're given these bank cards. It's an absolute scandal. We need to grow a backbone and show people what's what, because absolutely there is no place for people like this in our country.
What about the point I made that it would be far cheaper to actually not put them in our prisons and just send them back anyway?
Well,
send them to their own prisons and do some sort of returns agreements, get some deals going like Donald Trump, limit visas, tariffs.
I would agree
that
we do need returns agreement. We just don't have them.
Well, we shouldn't be paying to house them full stop in prisons if they commit crimes in this country.
Well, then we need to set up the returns agreement, and I would encourage anyone to do that. I would. The Tory government, the Labour governments. This is, we've been housing foreign criminals in the UK as long as we've had prisons.
But you could use things like visa bans and things like that.
But that's just to bite off our own nose.
Sorry, but part of the conditions of living in this country, of being accepted into this country, should be that you don't break the law. If you break the law, you're out. It should be that simple. I don't actually care. I would tear up the facilitated returns agreement. I would show that Britain wants people here who want to contribute to the country, that if you are accepted into this country, as I said, it's a privilege, it's not a right. You don't get to break the law and then live in cushy British prisons. I'm sure it's a lot tougher in Romania.
And as for people, Donald Trump sending people